In 1830, Josiah Wilbarger left his home in St. Louis and came to Texas, drawn by the promise of land for any man willing to work it. Wilbarger settled on the Colorado River, some miles upstream from where the river crossed El Camino Real, the King's Highway that ran between San Antonio and Nacogdoches. 2 years later, his good friend Reuben Hornsby brought his wife Sarah and their 8 children, and they came to Texas as well, building a home also on the Colorado River, only 9 miles below the present city of Austin, a place that's still called Hornsby's Bend. Now, although some miles separated the two families, they considered themselves neighbors, and there was much visiting back and forth. Hornsby's Bend became a kind of Land's End, a jumping-off place for people coming to Texas wanting to locate headrights of their own, and Wilbarger was a frequent scout for such parties. Now, it was in August of 1833 when 4 men came from the north to Hornsby's Bend. They hired Wilbarger to scout for them, and Wilbarger left his home and went to Hornsby's Bend to spend the night. He got those men up early the next morning. You know what the heat is like in Texas in August. Now, he took them some miles to the northwest. They were scouting for headrights of their own, when suddenly, silhouetted against the sky in those cedar-covered hills, they saw a single Comanche Indian who saw them as well and turned and melted back into the hills. Those 4 men gave chase, but the Comanche had vanished. Now, it was not long after that they came upon a likely spot to make camp, cook a noon meal, maybe take a siesta during the afternoon heat, a place where a fresh spring rose, pecan trees grew, and good grass for their horses. Now, 2 of the newcomers, those newcomers from the northeast, their horses were hot and sweaty from the chase. They unsaddled them, took their bridles off, turned them loose to graze in that good bottom land. Wilbarger, he had that Comanche in the back of his mind. He hobbled his horse with the saddle and bridle on, and 2 of the newcomers watched what he did, and they did the same. Now, they had a fire going, getting ready to cook their noon meal, but things were just so quiet. No birds calling, not even the sound of the crickets in the trees. Wilbarger got to his feet and said, "I'm going to take a look around." And suddenly, he saw one of the men in their party fall with a bullet through his brain and another with an arrow through his leg. He looked. They were surrounded by Comanches in the trees, being fired on with bows and guns. Those 2 men made for the horses that still had their saddles on, and Wilbarger called, "Wait! Wait for me!" The 2 men said they looked. They saw Wilbarger come running after them, and then they saw him pitch forward as though hit from behind with a bullet. They saw at least 50 Comanche rushing for his scalp. So they didn't wait for Wilbarger. They caught those horses and they rode hard for Hornsby's Bend, and they made it. And there, when the story was told, it was agreed that for that night, the dead would have to care for the dead. The Comanche had attacked in such force and met with such success, they might be bold enough to attack Hornsby's Bend itself. And so a rider was sent south to carry the tidings to the Wilbarger home. And another was sent east toward Nacogdoches to summon reinforcements. And then they buttoned up Hornsby's Bend tight. And one by one, all the people in the household drifted off to sleep. Now, in the middle of the night, Reuben's wife, Sarah, awoke from a dream that she said was as clear as clouds against sheet lightning in the sky, and she roused the entire household with her cries. "Wilbarger is alive," she said. "In my dream, I've seen him. He sits under a single post oak tree. The only thing that covers him is the blood from his wounds, and he is scalped, but he is alive." Well, those two men came in. They told her again what they had seen, how they'd seen the Comanche rushing to take his scalp, and everyone knew the Comanche didn't leave a white man breathing. And finally, as the men insisted that Wilbarger could not have survived, Sarah decided perhaps the dream was a product of overwrought nerve.